After a wild, historic weekend of the divisional round, we talk fantasy, talking about the final four teams left in the NFL and how you can benefit in the world of fantasy coming up. But before we do it, we got to tell you about our friends over at Mohawk Honda. January 2022. How about a new vehicle for you to start off that first month of the year? It can happen now thanks to our friends at Mohawk Honda. People that you can trust during the car buying experience. My guy Cam McKenna and I am working on the new Pilot right now. You can get yourself into a new Pilot. Maybe the Passport is the vehicle you're looking for. It can happen right now with Mohawk Honda. Shout out to Greg Johnson and Lindsey Harridan and Brian McKenna, Hot Sauce Doyle, John. You know all the names of the people we've worked with. Now you know the place. You trust them. Glenville, New York, Mohawk Honda, where they always go out of their way to please you. And don't forget, Levac and Gaz, another great show here on Gonzalo Media, will be broadcasting live from Mohawk Honda on Thursday, February 10th. Thursday, February 10th will be live at Mohawk Honda. And even more, if you've got some favorite chicken wings in the capital region, now, new date. We're telling you now, new date, noon, Wednesday, February 9th, Tour de Wings at Mohawk Chevrolet. Date just changed. Hell, by the time you see this again, it might change again. It's a weird world we live in 2022, but tentatively scheduled for Wednesday, February 9th at noon, Tour de Wings, judged by me, Levac, Chad O'Hara. Wednesday, February 9th. Let's get into it. It's just two guys right here because Chet's doing his thing because I think Kyle and I need some time alone together because of what happened involving our Bucks and Bills. Kyle has now disappeared off the screen, so I'm going to go first. I think he's just hiding from the shame that was the horrible, tough 13 seconds. My Buccaneers were up. I say up in my mind because I thought they were going to win the game once Tom Brady tied it up down 20. And I had to watch Cooper Kupp break into the open field, who's been a fantasy star for the whole season. I had to watch Levante David go rogue and just decide not to blitz, and just stand there like a high school kid who didn't know the play. Fantasy, we'll start with the Bucks and Rams. Fantasy perspective. Should we have known that the big game was coming from Kupp and Odell and Stafford, these names that we've heard about all year long, stepped up and were the difference it felt like in that game against Tampa, fantasy-wise at least, and real football-wise?
I think we called it out last week. I mean, that was everything that we said was potentially is going to happen. Is the Bucs secondary has been the Achilles heel, and it has been a glaring Achilles heel all year. And if you could get the defense playing well against the Bucs, I mean, it's what happened. I mean, I, however, think Cooper Kupp solidified his MVP. How him able to get open again? I know it was a weak secondary. What he put up almost 200 yards. Just the dude never felt like he was covered. You watch, it was just like, oh, there's Kupp. Oh, there's Kupp. Oh, hey, there's Kupp again. And then, we talked a lot about OBJ and new beginnings early in the year. And, from a keeper perspective with OBJ, now you're looking at OBJ like, if he stays on the Rams, this could be a money keeper, especially with a lot of times him going in later rounds. But I feel for you guys. As you can tell, I feel you. But I 100%. I think this is the game that we thought we would see from Matt through Stafford all year. Was great passing, great reads, and Cooper Kupp is just unbelievable. So I kind of expected it. I honestly didn't think the Bucs were going to be in it from the get go. But I mean, you got to give them some props that they were able to come down, tie it up, and almost win the game.
Give them props or blame Cam Akers. Like that was going to be, I was already pre-angry at oh my God, Tom Brady did it again. He erased another playoff deficit. Give me a break. He had nothing to do. Don't give me the Tom Brady effect. Made Cam Akers fumble at the 1 and then fumble again in Buccaneers territory. I guess they're on their own. It's just like you get so mad because you see it happening. And yeah, if you give Brady 9 lives, he's going to take advantage. But for Cooper Kupp, I guess 2-part question for you guys. The first question seems pretty obvious at this point. Cooper Kupp's the number 1 fantasy receiver taken next year?
For sure.
100%. Especially, I think this is going to sound weird, but if Odell Beckham Jr. is there, 110%, because that eliminates the double coverage option. You can't double coverage that.
And hopefully Robert Woods comes back healthy and can once again be a contributor. So then the second part of that question, and we don't have our lists in front of us. We're still working on crafting our power rankings for next year. How high should Cooper Kupp be taken? And this is a strategy question. So I guess you do it in terms of what do you think the ADP should be for a guy like Cooper Kupp?
I think he'll fall around 6 because again, next year what's that?
You're saying the running backs, right? The running backs are going to.
I mean, if you have a top 5 pick, you have to go one of those top 5 running backs. You have to. And this year,
I would argue, I think people got to start changing their strategy on that. I understand it's slim pickings, and if you wait on running backs, you could be screwed in later rounds. But look at where people were requiring Saquon Barkley to be drafted. Like, there are certain running backs where if there's a question mark, and this is where it comes down to draft strategy, if there's a question mark with that running back, why don't you go for the slam dunk wide receiver who almost had the most historic season ever and was most consistent?
Mm-hmm.
So that's where, we're going to have to look at that. Right. And you bring up the number 6. I think 4 to 6 is where tough decisions are going to have to be made of, do I take a flyer on a running back that I hope can live up to his potential, or do I go with the slam dunk Cooper Kupp, who's just an absolute stud?
I'm so interested in that question, Chet. You said that's going to drive my planning strategy for the summer coming up of how high he should go, because I'll just toss this point on here. I'm sure you guys have thought about this already. What would it ever take for a non-running back to go 1? Like, isn't this the perfect element to have that happen where all the top tier running backs got hurt? Derrick Henry, McCaffrey,
Taylor.
Right, except for Taylor. And, Taylor preseason could have been anywhere between 7th and 10th. I don't know if anyone had him crack top 5. Dalvin Cook is in that mix too. I don't want to forget him. But if it's not Taylor or Henry, who did get hurt, why isn't he 3? Like, why isn't he 1? Or it goes back to the simple point, and maybe this is why running backs will always be 1. The drop-off is so substantial between that high number running back, the value of a running back comparison to a wide receiver. Or someone say, just give me the skill guy who's going to score me the most points. I'll figure it out in round 2. Hell, we might see the zero running back theory take off more than ever before, where I'm just going to draft a bunch of wideouts and quarterbacks, and I'll go to the heap and figure out who gets hurt after week 3 and piece it together at running back. So that is fascinating. But I feel like this should be the season that if we want to make a compelling argument for a receiver to go 1, why not 2022?
I think what I'll say is my final answer is I'll use Kyle's 6 is where I'll say he will not survive past pick 6. He shouldn't be in the top 6.
He shouldn't, but it's one of those like scary parts.
Right. And then you're going to have to make, hopefully he falls to you. If you're in that position of 4, 5, 6, good luck. Because if you don't take him, I guarantee you're going to be kicking it at certain weeks when he goes off for his 200-yard game like we saw against Tampa Bay. So
let me ask you this. Say he goes in that 6th pick. He's your first wide receiver. You going to double up with a wide receiver in round 2 and take on Gaza's strategy? Just elite wide receiver talent, piece together like a Devin Singletary in round 4 or 5.
Right. I try to maybe target. I'm not sure if there's any studs coming out from college at the running back position like we had this past year with Najee and
Kenneth Walker the third.
There you go, Kenneth Walker. See where it's all about opportunity for those young running backs. I think you think about it. And then it's always about what's the best on the board. I'm not going to pass up. Let's say Devontae Adams is on the board, and we don't know where he will be or who his quarterback will be. But if you have the second best, that's where you're like, you know what? I'm doubling down, baby. I want wide receiver 1. I want wide receiver 2. Those guys are going to guarantee me 40 points a week. And then like Goss says, I'll figure out the rest later in the draft. And you might have to get lucky. And hope you have the right handcuffs or you have the good waiver priority, which could make the difference. And you realize Cordero Patterson early. There's always that one guy. Alvin Kamara as a rookie. Cordero Patterson this past year, where it's not even an injury. It's just it takes people a little while to realize, okay, this guy's consistent. He's for real. Like he could be a fantasy impact player every week. So you just have to be hopefully land that diamond in the rough.
One final point on that, too, is the other option. The other narrative that you could take is in like the 7th, 8th round, just start grabbing San Francisco 49ers running backs. You'll hit on one of them.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought up the 49ers because I don't want to – I guess I'm going to have to skip over Bengals Titans because there was barely any offense, and we did a lot on the Bengals, and we already mentioned Derrick Henry. So like that – right, like that fantasy perspective from that game, it'll be fun to see how much Joe Burrow can put up in that shootout coming up here against the Chiefs. For the Packers and Niners, you just mentioned the Niners. Debo Samuel is going to be in this conversation as wide receiver 2. I'm already seeing some people screaming that he should be a running back eligible player next season, which how different would that value of Debo Samuel be if he's running back and wide receiver eligible next year? Right. He might be what, top 5, top 3?
I
Top
think
1?
you could easily make an argument for top 5.
For sure.
If he's got the running back designation, 100%.
And Aaron Rodgers has been a fantasy beast for a decade plus. He might not be on a roster or might be on a roster next season, but there was no action fantasy-wise, right? Like, combined in those 2 games, we got 1 offensive touchdown. The action, the excitement, the touchdowns, the fantasy scoring came in Chiefs-Bills. One of the true classic NFL playoff games of all time. I'm just going to change the graphic below. Kyle, we'll let you go first. You can take this wherever you want. Luckily, we're taping here on a Thursday afternoon and not a Sunday night where the emotions would have been too raw for this taping for the both of us. But days later, your feelings about that game.
It still hurts. I mean, how does it not? That was one of the greatest games of all times. It was the greatest final 3 minutes ever in the history of football. I mean, you had quarterback 1, quarterback 2, whichever way you play it. I mean, Chet and I had this discussion a little bit. They are clear-cut QB1, QB2. Mahomes, Allen, Mahomes, however you want to play. I don't think you're wrong. I think it's a fair. It's like saying Michael Jordan, LeBron. You're going to have valid points for both. But it hurt. I mean, when I called ball game after the Chiefs went up 9. Late in the third quarter, I was like, here we go. The defense can't stop them. Brian Dable's being Brian Dable, whoever gets Brian Dable, good luck with your mood swings. It's going to be a roller coaster. But once that Gabe Davis hit, I mean, then you feel like you have life. And then they held them to a field goal and you're like, oh, no shot. This is going to happen. So last 2 minutes, I don't think I've ever been on more of an emotional roller coaster in a very long time. And that's coming from my Michigan State high of beating Duke 3 years ago. But just from being down and having the drive and watching Allen laser beam a ball to Davis to then watching Mahomes hit or Tyreek Hill for a 64-yard touchdown where Hill just took a 5-yard drag and just ran away from everybody to just ultimate low to then Allen milking every little bit of that 106 to give 13 seconds left. And again, another laser beam where Gabe Davis absolutely murdered his former college teammate. And I mean, the dude probably should retire from football. That was just bad. Toppled. To again, being high through the ceiling. I jumped on my wife. I was screaming. I was happy. And then Leslie Frazier decided to play a prevent defense and protect the boundaries when they have 3 timeouts in the middle of the field with the most dangerous wide receiver and the most dangerous tight end in NFL football. So as soon as that happened, I sat there and said, if we don't win the coin flip, it's over. Heads it was. Tails failed. But you saw what the future of the NFL is. You saw the future of the AFC. It's going to be wild. I think the comparisons to Brady and Manning are correct. I think Mahomes is going to get another Super Bowl this year quite easily. I think the rest of the playoff race is in his favor, unless he runs into a motivated Rams pass rush. Outside of that, I think Mahomes walks this one, has a walk in the park here. But you got to look at it from the positive side, which, guys, you might not have this perspective with your Bucs. Your Bucs have so much talent, but they're going to be missing a quarterback soon. The Bills have Josh Allen locked up for 7 years. So if there's any solace, it's that the quarterback position for the Bills is solidified for 7 years, pending any injuries. But you got to give credit where credit's due. I mean, I was very sad Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. Now it sucks, but hey, the better team won that day, and you can't be mad with. It's not like the Bills played bad. It just was a shootout that the Chiefs had the ball last. And note, the overtime rule sucks. We will all agree it sucks. However, it did not define the outcome. Bills fans, quit bitching about it. And also, if you are saying Sean McDermott needs to be fired, go jump off a bridge.
There's a lot to digest with what was just said. I don't even know where to start. I agree with the overtime. I feel like a lot of the overtime hate, the solutions thrown out there weren't any better.
No.
I don't understand Josh Allen should have gotten a chance to answer. Okay, yeah, Josh Allen and the Bills would have tied it. And then what? Then it becomes sudden death? Okay, then Kansas City goes and kicks a field goal. Like, if you want to change overtime, I'm all for it. I think college football has a much more exciting finish than what the NFL does, a much more fair outcome. I think with the talent level of the NFL, I think it needs to be scaled back a little bit. Like, we don't want to see games that are 120 to 113. Like, let's make it a little more difficult. Let's make sure that these guys got to get at least a first down to get into field goal range. And then, see maybe even start with immediate 2-point conversions after touchdowns.
That one I love.
Like that, because you also got to take in mind, Vegas doesn't want to implode, where these overs get destroyed in overtime and all these prop bets get destroyed. Like, I'd even be down for creating overtime like its own separate stat. Like, it doesn't get included into, if Josh Allen throws 15 touchdowns, like, well, that just broke every record. That's never, you know what I mean? Like, those kind of things. But yeah, keep Sean McDermott. Like, give me a break. This is the most successful run the Bills have had since the 90s. And like Kyle said, they're not going anywhere. Like, they're going to be in the mix. I do always worry when quarterbacks sign massive deals. How can they finagle the rest of their team in the salary cap? But I think the big thing is you got to have a smart GM, and I think that is Bean in Buffalo. And you have to have a culture that people want to be a part of. And I think they've already established that. Having veteran guys like an Emmanuel Sanders, who might not have panned out for the second half of the season, but there's going to be more Emmanuel Sanders that want to play with a guy like Josh Allen, that want to play with Stephon Diggs, and that defense has fun, and they're number one ranked. Like, they're going to be able to find guys on veteran minimums, like kind of like what Ndamukong Suh became later in his career. Guys that want to chase rings and be on good teams and can make an impact. So the thing about that, though, is Patrick Mahomes is going to be there as well. Like, It's going to be this every year. You're going to either hope someone takes out Mahomes or you're going to have to do it yourself. And I think I tweeted it, and we might have also talked about it in our Twitter DM, is it's not just those two.
No, it's not. No, it's not.
Herbert's going to be there. Joe Burrow's going to be there. Lamar Jackson might be able to return to MVP form. Like, it's going to be like, we're in for an amazing decade of football in one conference. Like, we're not talking about winning the Super Bowl. We're talking about winning the AFC. Getting to a Super Bowl is going to be such a fun time for these, for us fans. For you, Kyle might have a heart attack. But as for the actual game, what an awesome finish! Like, it was so fun. I'm not a Bills fan. I actually think you guys are pretty annoying most of the time. But I honestly felt bad. I honestly, like, Cam and I, my wife and I were watching on the couch. She's not a football fan, and she was into it. And we both multiple times were like, poor Kyle. Like, holy shit. Like, they had, with 13 seconds, I think I even sent a congratulations text. I was like, you guys did it. And then, like, never thought that they would have been able to gain that much yardage. And then the overtime happened. From a fantasy perspective, and we can dive into this a little bit later, Gabe Davis, man. Gabe Davis, keep an eye on. Someone did a great mini research about guys who weren't super productive in a regular season to have that big of an explosion in the postseason. And if they went on to go and do great things, one of those guys was, I believe, Jordy Nelson. Jordy Nelson and Devontae Adams were similar, early in their career, had a pedestrian regular season, but then, erupted in the postseason. But then there were also guys, who was that white guy for the Patriots that played lacrosse?
Edelman?
No. Hogan.
He played for the Bills.
Chris Hogan, yeah.
He was one of the guys that was on the other side of it, that had this 20-point outburst and then didn't really do a whole lot after it. So I think we all went into this season thinking Gabe Davis was going to be this breakout player in a great offense with a great quarterback who had an awesome, I believe, rookie campaign last year, right?
Yeah.
Year. But then they went out and added an Emmanuel Sanders and took away a lot of the targets. I think that's always going to be what's going to hold him back from being a really consistent guy is Stephon Diggs is clearly number one still. Dawson Knox is a red zone beast, and Josh Allen's legs. So there's going to be spurts where Gabe Davis isn't going to do a whole lot, in my opinion. But he also has the ability to catch 4 freaking touchdowns and 200 yards. Like, the guy is clearly extremely talented. So from a dynasty perspective, maybe even a mid-round guy that you can get a steal on, I think Gabe Davis has the potential to be a big fantasy player next year.
You mentioned Dawson Knox, by the way. I think it's worth reminding people that Dawson Knox, A.J. Brown, and DK Metcalf were all on the same college offense at Ole Miss. Oh, my God.
And isn't it true that Dawson Knox was a walk-on quarterback?
Yes.
That's even crazier.
You mentioned Gabe Davis right there. When you go through the all-time NFL playoff game performances by a wide receiver, you can make a really good case. It's the greatest one of all time. Because I think he ends up finishing top 7 in receiving yards in a postseason game and 4 touchdowns. Like, who's better than that? Now, here's the problem, though, unfortunately.
Was a playoff record, correct?
Right, yeah. The problem with what happens with performances like Gabe Davis and Josh Allen's last 2 rounds in the playoffs is that sports fans, people who break down the games, whatever it is, losing teams don't get that type of legacy recognition. It's hard to remember your top 5 losing performances in sports history. It's a lot easier for top 5 winning.
Not for the Bills.
Right. Sorry, but usually that's what happens there. Yeah, you guys both mentioned from the real world, Buffalo is in position. I told you guys this. That's why that team was built, was to beat Kansas City, and they have the lead with, if you told everybody from the owners, the executives, the players, we're going to have a lead at home against Kansas City. It doesn't matter. Home, away, in Neutralville. We're beating Mahomes with less than 30 seconds to go. You'd feel good about it. It didn't happen.
I think you play that scenario 100 times, the Bills win 99.
100.
Yeah.
It's funny how you said that.
I mean, that's like, do you remember? I don't think they ever did it in Madden, but I know they did it in the NCAA college basketball, where you could play the classic games where like it became a classic.
The Michael Jordan shot.
Yeah. So you'd like start this game at 13 seconds, and you're like, can you beat the Bills with 13 seconds? It would take a lot of tries to get into field goal range. There wasn't even like a Hail Mary field goal. Like, it was
a dump off to Tyreek and wide open Kelsey.
Like, holy, I was thinking that they were going to attempt a 60-yarder and Bucker was going to have to blast one. Which, since we're talking about kickers real quick, I just want to put a PSA out there.
Yep.
Get rid of the kicking analyst.
Yep.
What a waste of money, a waste of breath. And that's not to say kickers' lives don't matter. We've seen it this postseason. Kickers, you got to have one. If your team does not have a clutch kicker, there's a good chance you're going to be going home early and watching the Super Bowl from your couch. With that being said, it ain't science, dude. Like, we all know how a kicker can kick a ball. And we know that if it's windy, it's tough. And that they kick pregame field goals. You can show us the pregame field goal. Holy cow. Every time the guy comes on, I mute it. I'm like, what a waste. A rules analyst? Fantastic. Because they know more about football than we'll ever know. And to this day, I still learn rules where I'm like, that's how that actually, works. The kicking one, though, every time I hear a guy come on, I'm like, I want to know. I don't even want to know how much they get paid for their 30 seconds of airtime. It's stupid.
Hey, NBC, CBS, whoever wants, I'll do it for.
What was the analysis from? Was it Feely who was on the game this past week? Justin Tucker's the GOAT. Harrison Butker's really good. That's all he effing said. That's literally all he said. It wasn't even like what made them great. He just said basic facts that we all know. You clown. That's literally theft. That guy should go to jail for taking money from that company. And just what a joke.
Chet, I don't want your kicker rant to end quite yet, because there is something in the mailbag this week that does involve kickers and players and close games and everything else from the fantasy world, and a little bit of sports wagering as well. Don't forget DraftKings Sportsbook, promo code 518. Before we get there, Johnstone Supply in Troy is our proud sponsor of the Mailbag Weekly. If you've got a question, whether it be Dynasty, Keeper, drafting, playoffs, daily fantasy, guys at GodzillaMedia.com. You guys see our social media handles as well. Hit us up on Twitter. Leave a comment underneath a video on social media, whatever it might be. But Johnstone Supply in Troy helps us make that happen. January, boilers, furnaces, things are happening in your home, your friends, your family. Save this number and text it to them and tell them, hey, if anything ever goes wrong, you have a dilemma with that, call these guys. 518-272-5922. 518-272-5922. Johnstone Supply and Troy will help you through that dilemma. They'll give you the best advice on how to handle it. And maybe you already know it's time to make that change for your furnace or your boiler. Call them. Stop over to 6th Avenue in Troy. They'll make the change for you. So we like to say the John Goodman furnaces are always a great deal. The new boilers are also out there as well. They got great deals going on January. And when you stop into 6th Avenue, competitive prices for the tools that you might need around your house. So you got everything you need. How to help your house get better, how to do those chores around the house, work with people who have been in the capital region for decades and been helping out upstate New York citizens, residents, great people like you. It is Johnstone Supply in Troy, helping you and helping you get some fantasy advice through our mailbag each week. Here it is. I know we've talked about tiebreaker rules this year on We Talk Fantasy. We've talked about bonuses. I'm submitting the mailbag question this week because what's happened is our pal Kyle Ray here has been enjoying, let's say, a few parlays in the world of daily fantasy and using that to score some cash. Chet despises kickers, as you just heard. So it perfectly set up without even I giving you guys a heads up about the mailbag question this week. Okay, we see overtime. Whether or not the rules are going to change still to be determined. I don't think they are. I'm with you on that take, Kyle, that you got enough time. You've got enough opportunities. Your defense can score, by the way, in comparison to any other sports that are popular in America. Get him a pick six and run it back. But in fantasy, if a player scores a touchdown, if a player kicks a game-winning field goal, if a player puts up extra yardage in overtime, should they be bonused? If you have a game-winning touchdown or a game-winning field goal, should that be a new add to fantasy in 2022? Whether it's 2 points, 4 points, what do you guys think of game-winning bonuses for fantasy players next season?
Not for it. I think when you look at that, it's just another. It's a part of the game. Like how many times do we sit there and celebrate when we get overtime because our guys get a chance to get a little bit of extra yards? Like you're already at a competitive advantage when you have overtime. You now add a fact that I'm going to give you more of a competitive advantage because it's overtime on top of the additional yards your team can get. I'm just not a fan of that. You are already getting bonus time. So that's how I look at it. I'm not a fan of that one.
Yeah, I'm struggling with it as well. I'm not a big bonus guy to begin with. I know a lot of leagues do them, reward players that get over 100 yards, whether it's receiving or rushing, explosive plays, 50 yards or plus bonuses. I've played in leagues like that before. It always just gets a little more I know the computers, the technology does it for us, but it always gets a little more confusing. Like trying to figure out where the points came from, or if you're tracking a game at the end, and now you have to worry about, not only the yardage and receptions and touchdowns. Now you're like, oh, but if he gets the bonus, and what if he has the quarterback and the receiver? It's a double bonus. And then I think a lot of people just get frustrated with almost losing in a cheap way. Like it's just another thing that is unpredictable. Like I feel like enough is already unpredictable, and it's like, oh, I lost because an effing kicker hit a game-winning field goal. Like that's what cost me this matchup or championship. So no, I think I leave with Kyle. I think it's an interesting idea. It would add another wrinkle to fantasy, but I think there's already enough wrinkles on my old ass, so I'm good.
I've had a few leagues flirt with this idea in the past where they just go back in at the end of the game and add a 6-point bonus for the game winner or a 4-point bonus, 3-point bonus for a game-winning field goal. I really never thought about it until this wrapped up and we were prepping for this week's episode because I thought, okay, I play in most leagues that are not fractionally based points, so I've rarely lost by a 10th or, a 100th of a point or anything like that. But then I thought about how awesome those games were this past weekend. Every play meant something. Fourth quarter meant something. Overtime meant something. As we all kind of reference, we've got our favorite teams, but we were all very much emotionally invested in those games. We love fantasy football. I don't know at times if it can get any better because of, again, the emotional investment we have in our players and our teams and having success and everything else. How can you make fantasy better? If we had to go down to like a fantasy committee and said, What can we do to improve this? Probably all three of us would be like, it's good as it is. Don't touch anything. No. Fantasy football is awesome. We also hate it at points. But this would be the only suggestion I would ever have to make it even more insane, more fun. Because, look, let's say the Lions are playing the Bears on a 1 o'clock game in November, right? And let's say that the Bears throw a meaningless touchdown and they win by 21. That meaningless touchdown of a Bears-Lions game in Week 6 should not mean the same as a Chiefs-Bills Week 1 Monday night battle between Mahomes and Allen. It almost, at times in fantasy, devalues the great performance, the great play, everything else, because it's being compared to something that is not as good. Now, I know what Chet's point is, and I think you're kind of getting at this. The problem is, what's the perfect number? The arbitrary bonus is not fair to the scoring. Is it 6? Is it 4? Is it 10? Is it 12? The arbitrary number of what you would reward for a bonus would hurt the leagues. But I wanted to find some type of way that if these players are stepping up in the clutch and having performances like we saw this past weekend, someone should be rewarded for that. I thought that was the best idea. I got a few more months to think about it, but I want something to give these plays like some type of more meaning in the fantasy world.
I'll say the best way to fix our fantasy leagues is just kill kickers. Like just completely axe them, get rid of them, and you guys can thank me later.
I'm not on board for killing the kickers. However, I am on board with Chet's idea for why aren't there defensive points for 3 and outs?
Yes.
Why aren't there defensive? Why aren't there offensive points for you just converted a 4th down?
Yeah, and you know what? And one of the reasons I added also, by the way, the daily fantasy DraftKings storyline there is, and some people have already seen it. There are people who will watch a Monday night football game when it's over 28-point difference because I got to get Kyler Murray to hit 27.5 completions, or I need like DeAndre Hopkins to give me 110. Look, fantasy players, we all know that. But in the world of sports wagering now, people are invested throughout the entire game. Could you imagine how much more they'd be invested if they had to hit a bonus like if DeAndre Hopkins scores the game winner, you're getting paid 8 times your bet. What am I getting paid? 8 times? Oh, yeah. Get that going. Because of these boosts and everything, that also had my mind going about what that could do for people. Clearly, you can see how well I wagered this week and just looking for easy ways to make money. After going
to Kyle's point, I do think that defenses could use the most attention when it comes to figuring out scoring and if they want to make adjustments or whatnot. It's called a turnover on downs. How is that not worth the same as an interception or fumble? It's worth nothing.
Or just give it 1 point. One point.
It's called a turnover on downs. Like, come on, that's something that, some of these great defenses that don't come up with the pick six or don't come up with the fumble return for a touchdown. Like, they're still amazing defensive performances that don't equal as much points as they should.
And how often do we see a dominant defensive performance and like the team's at 15 points, but that other team has 0 points. They've gotten 5 sacks. They haven't allowed any yards. And they're up 40-0. Then all of a sudden, garbage time, 3 touchdowns happens. That team just now went from 15 to 5.
Right.
With nothing. Like, they dominated. It was clear as day.
And the Detroit Lions gave up 40, but they blocked a punt for a touchdown, and that was 5. How is that the same kind of performance? It's stupid.
Well, it's crazy. It's insane. Before we get into our fantasy plays, thanks to DraftKings, whether they end up being individual plays, touchdown score, just picking the games with money lines, whatever you want to do here in the fantasy world, we got to tell you who these picks are brought to you by. And they're brought to you by our friend over at Northeastern Insurance. That's Jared Lozier. Give him a call today at 518-956-3753. 518-956-3753. When you call him or email him, JAREDL@NEmail.com, he is going to save you cash. Maybe you're like me and you've been losing a little bit more on DraftKings than you'd like. You start looking around wondering where you can save cash in 2022, and that's those insurance policies on things that are important to you, like your car, your home, your valuables, whatever it might be. Jared Lozier is going to step up and help you save that cash. He's going to shop the market, find the quote that works for you, and by the end of the year, you'll be like, all right, thank you, Jared. It's the best parlay I hit was because of you. I got money in my pocket because you helped me through it. It doesn't matter when or where you want that quote. Just email him, JAREDL@NEmail.com, and he will shop the market for you. Everyone wants to save money. Make it simple and easy. Contact Jared Lozier, Northeastern Insurance, helping you save cash in 2022. All right, guys, I'm just going to tell you my plays for this week. I said this on Gaz in the Go. Also, don't forget to download, subscribe, rate, and review on that podcast. They were my lamest plays of about 30 plus episodes of that. I got to my weekend wagers. I looked at NBA games like, I don't like anything. College, I don't like anything. This weekend's games, I said, okay, give me Debo Samuel and Cooper Kupp to score at any time, which is dancing between plus 110 and minus 110, and I can't parlay that yet. Come on, DraftKings, give me a same game parlay. So the payout would be about 4-1 if they both score. I feel good about that. And that seems like the weakest, lamest, most favorite pick possible. But I'm going Debo Samuel and Cooper Kupp for my picks both to score in that game to give you about a 4 times return investment. Is that too lame and too boring of a pick for me this weekend?
Not at all.
No, not if it hits. Not if you make some money. Come on now.
So I like it, guys. I mean, there comes those plays. I did it with the Bills last week, and I won $100. I made a bunch of easy line bets that were way in my favor. It was Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen to each throw 2 touchdowns. The over in the first half for touchdown scores was 0.5. Josh Allen for over 199. Bills plus 11. Like, I just went crazy with like stuff that like I have trust that this is going to happen. Complete faith, not like, oh, this could happen. No, this is what's gonna happen. And I put a $20 bet on it, made $100. It was easy.
Hey.
So no, nothing wrong with that at all. I actually have had this single game parlay in for the Chiefs Bengals. Just chilling here, just like waiting patiently if I want to use one of my free bets on it. So this is what I got. Let me know what your guys.
Can you give us? How about I put an over under for Gaz? Is it so? It's a parlay.
Yep, seven pick parlay.
Ooh. That was what my over under was going to be.
6.5 over.
Yeah, I was going to say I knew it was going to be a juicy one. All right, here we go.
So I've flexed this between 7 picks and 9 picks, and I'll tell you the 9 pick after. Joe Burrow and
Guys, let's do thumbs up, thumbs down if you think it's
okay. All right.
Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes both over 250 yards.
I like it.
Over for our audio audience. We both went over on that one.
Yep. Patrick Mahomes, 3 passing touchdowns.
I would personally go under.
I also would go under as well. So
are you worried about the pass rush?
I just 3's a lot. It's got to be. So he's got to have 4.
No, it's 3 or more.
Okay.
Not 3.5.
3 that's a lot in my. Yeah.
I would say if he scores too early and the Chiefs are up big, they might not throw the ball as much. That's why I get a little nervous about that one.
I don't think they get up big because of what how Burrow, and this is where I kind of go next. Jamar Chase and T. Higgins anytime scorers.
Up. I like that one.
I like that.
Hill and Kelsey anytime scorers.
Yeah, that's good too.
Scares me.
Yep.
Scares me a little bit.
That's currently plus 2,000, so 20 times your bet.
Ooh.
Now, if you want to really roll the dice here, DraftKings has the maximum yardage for both of them at 350. You throw each of they essentially get 251 to 249 yards. You win both of those. You can add both of them. Brings your odds for plus 2,000 to plus 7,000. I have been flexing between that for like a while. So I've been flipping them back and forth, just trying to figure out what I want to do. I have 2 free bets. I'm probably going to use both of them.
If you're watching on our visual side, you just saw how quickly I just jumped to my phone to see how to pull this off. I thought because of like the number being 7, I'd have like a half and half because that's usually what it is, right? Especially over unders and lines. You're going to go. Chad, we're about 6 for 7. I think we liked every pick except the Mahomes pick.
Yeah, and then it could happen. Like that's not an outrageous number. 3 is very doable. That's the only one that really scared me.
If you drop
in the Hill, Tyreek Hill, he's so hit or miss. Like if they have the right game plan, like you said, Kyle, you can't slow down Tyreek, but you can contain him. Like you just don't let him burn you for 60 plus. Sorry to bring up that memory, but I think Kelsey definitely scores. I think Kelsey is like he's the guy. Like he's just such a dude, man. And like with these games matter the most, he shows up. Like I think he will 100% score a touchdown. Tyreek scares me, and if Mahomes can get to 3. But otherwise, man, you're putting that bet in. You're doing
I know I am.
you're doing it.
So I actually have a couple more because I've been looking at this a lot. The defense special teams prop for 49ers Rams. The over-under for both field goals made is 1.5. Please take the over on that. Please, for God's sakes, take the over on both of those.
Chet rooting for kickers would be too much fun.
And then my other favorite was the quarters. So if you look at 49ers Rams, the total points over in the first quarter was 9.5. Take the under. Because if the Niners get the ball, they're just going to run the ball. That clock is going to bleed. Wow. 9.5. So you're telling me that they're going to get a touchdown and a field goal between both teams. I don't think that's going to happen. But where that clock, the game plan for the Niners is going to be the run. Their first offensive series is going to be the strongest. They're going to run, throw a little dump off to Debo, maybe Kittle. The Niners, if they get a drive going, they're going to bleed 9 minutes off that clock against that defense because they're not going to get big chunk plays. I like the under on that first quarter. And then I also kind of like the under 45.5. Not going to lie.
Ooh, and the thing about the Niners, the scout report you just gave too, that's been their whole season. That's how they've won games this entire year, and they've beaten the Rams 6 times in a row. McVay knows that. Ooh, very interesting. That 9.5 first quarter,
is news to me. 6 times in a row?
Yeah.
Holy moly. That's shocking.
Well, by the next time we all talk, Chet, do you have any plays? I know last week you passed. I know we just threw a lot of info at you. Do you want to give a Super Bowl prediction of who's going to be playing?
That. Ooh, okay. Super Bowl prediction. I'm going to be
double money lines, we'll call it.
It's going to be Chiefs. I got to make my picks for the newspaper. We read these in the newspaper, but I would go Chiefs Rams. I think that's the collision course we're on. I'm pulling for Joey B as a former Louisiana resident. I think I would bet that there are more Joe Burrow fans in Louisiana than there are in Ohio. I honestly, they love him down there. My in-laws text me every time he plays. Like, they care more about the Bengals right now than they do about the Saints without Sean Payton. So Who Dat Nation, they're all on the same team this weekend.
Well, the next time we all speak, it is going to be Super Bowl prep week. Now, we got an interesting way we got to decide to do this. There's a potential we might take next week off because we're prepping for the big game February 13th. And we have a feeling that fantasy-wise, you thought we had some good prop bets for you. This is the ultimate one. Like, this is the Super Bowl.
I forgot about all this.
We're going to have
bet on this legally.
Oh, yeah. We're going to have
National
probably
anthem,
everything.
Let's go.
From every quarterback stat your minds are probably going to turn into mashed potatoes in 2 weeks because of all the fun stuff we're going to be talking about when it comes to fantasy and numbers. So just to prepare your minds, likely next week off, and then we get a super episode for our Super Bowl coverage week. By the way, Godzilla Media's Super Bowl coverage. We got a lot of cool things planned. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to leave that as a little tease for the upcoming Super Bowl coverage in February. All right, guys, enjoy the games this week. Hopefully I'll cash some wagers. And we'll talk again in February.
See ya.
Later.